When adding a subwoofer to a custom car audio system, the subwoofer enclosure or box can easily take up a lot of space in the vehicle. And generally speaking, the larger the subwoofer you choose, the larger the volume or space requirement. So what do you do to add a subwoofer if you have a limited space application? Like a single cab pickup truck or an underseat location or a storage location, or what if you simply just don't want to give up a whole lot of cargo area? You go with a subwoofer that's shallow. Now, I feel like shallow mount subwoofers sometimes get a bad rap. Unfortunately, there are some subwoofers on the market that are called a shallow mount subwoofer, when in reality, they're more of a conventional subwoofer design with a smaller frame and magnet to reduce that mounting depth. Many of them still require a large amount of air volume like their full-size counterparts. This is why when choosing a shallow mount subwoofer, you really want to go with a design that has been engineered from the ground up to be a shallow mount subwoofer. Enter the JL Audio lineup of thin line subwoofers. Here on the channel, I've had many projects where I've used the TW1 and TW3 thin line subwoofers and obtained amazing results. But today we are looking at the subwoofer that's at the top of the food chain for thin line subwoofers. This is the JL Audio 13 TW5. Designed specifically to be used in those space challenged installs, this subwoofer may have a thin mounting depth, but it has a huge cone, allowing us to achieve incredible amounts of great sounding bass, all within very little space. What are the design details on these and the specs, and how will I be using these in an upcoming project here on the channel? Let's hop in. Now really quick, my friends, full disclosure, JL Audio is in fact a sponsor of the channel. A big thanks to them for helping make our videos possible. But with that said, I've been a long-time user of JL Audio gear, long before I actually even started the channel, and I've always had great results, and I'm looking forward to showing you guys the TW5. To kick this off properly, let's find out what's in the box. First off, information on the warranty, how to register the subwoofer, JL Audio stickers, a warning that damage can occur if you have anything obstructing the movement of the subwoofer, along with a picture of the sold separately grill that you can use to protect the subwoofer if need be, which by the way I have right here, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit. And finally, the manual for the subwoofer, which includes all of the different specifications, the dimensions for the subwoofer, and recommendations on the enclosure. Remove this piece of material, and there it is, the 13 TW5. So first impressions here, this subwoofer is large. We're going to talk more about its exact size in a minute here, but compared to my hand, this is a large, beefy subwoofer, even though it is just so incredibly thin. You'll also notice this unique tab ear design. We'll talk about that in a second, but it has this glossy cone in the middle here with an embossed JL Audio logo. While most of the surface here is this flat black paint color, it also has this flashy machined metal surface around the outside perimeter. On the back side here, again, is an embossed JL Audio logo. This has a chrome finish to it. Around that logo, if you look closely, you can see a metal mesh surrounded by this even silver looking finish. Again, we've got that flat black paint right there. And if you look at the back side of the mounting flange here, there's a precision cut piece of foam that will serve as a gasket between the subwoofer and the enclosure. The wire terminals on this subwoofer are a bit unique. There's only 2 terminals because this is a single voice coil subwoofer. It's available as a 2 ohm or 4 ohm model, but you can see that they are rotated down from their standard position, again, to allow for more clearance. You can see that the positive terminal is clearly labeled with that red indicator right there, and the negative terminal, of course, has black. Again, though, the most impressive thing you're going to notice straight out of the box is just how incredibly shallow this subwoofer is. If we take a measurement here from the back side of the mounting flange, it's only about 2 5/8 inches, or about 67 millimeters. With that extremely thin mounting depth, we have a ton more options of where we can possibly add a subwoofer like this into a vehicle. So we know the subwoofer is thin and that it looks good, but let's dive more into the details and talk about specifications. First off, power-wise, for each of these TW5s, you're going to want to provide between 250 and 600 watts RMS. Now, I've talked about this before on the channel, but I really like that JL Audio provides a power range because it avoids the confusion of thinking that you have to provide that top amount value in order to get good results. That's not the case. Let's say, as an an example that you want to run 2 of the 13 TW5s and you have an 1000-watt amplifier, that's going to be a great combination, sending 500 watts RMS of power to each subwoofer, which is well within that power range. Now, before we can properly talk about the size of the subwoofer, we really need to understand why they incorporated this tab ear style design. This subwoofer here is obviously all about space savings. So what they've done by having this tab ear design is, if you think about it, you can have 2 of these subwoofers right up against each other, and the mounting flange isn't going to get in the way and require more space. In fact, I have 2 of these, so I might as well show you here. You can see that this allows the surrounds of the subwoofers to get very close to each other. We don't need that additional space like we would with a conventional design. This is advantageous because if you are running multiple subwoofers, obviously you can get more into a smaller amount of width. And even if you were only running 1 subwoofer, you can still save space, as the enclosure only needs to go to the edge of this ring. By going with this tab ear style design, they were able to achieve a subwoofer that is technically a 13-inch subwoofer, even though it fits within the same relative footprint of a conventional 12-inch subwoofer. And generally speaking, the more piston area a subwoofer has, the easier it is for that subwoofer to provide more output. To provide a direct comparison, if we were to look at the SD, or effective piston area, of a JL Audio 12W3, which is a conventional style 12-inch subwoofer, it has an SD of 80.6 square inches. If we look at the SD of our 13 TW5 here, it has 98.256 square inches. So even though the 12W3 and the 13 TW5 have a very similar outside diameter, the TW5 has a much larger effective piston area. Now, while we're on that topic, it's also worth noting this specification right here, Xmax, which is one-way linear excursion, or in other words, how far the subwoofer is coming out or moving in from its neutral position. On the 13 TW5, that value is 0.433 inches or 11 millimeters. Tons of excursion for being such a thin subwoofer. It's also worth noting that inside here is a 7-inch voice coil. A few other notable specs: these have a free air resonance of around 26 or 27 hertz depending on the model. These have a driver displacement of only 0.052 cubic feet. You're not going to have a ton of displacement inside your enclosure to get to the targeted enclosure size. Now, on the recommended sealed enclosures for both the 2 ohm and 4 ohm model, JL Audio recommends a 0.8 cubic foot air volume sealed enclosure. Again, in comparison to a full-size subwoofer like the 12W3, the suggested volume is actually 1.125 cubic feet, and the 13W3 is around 1.5 cubic feet. So these are designed for a substantially smaller enclosure while still being able to dig deep and create solid bass. A very important side note here, directly from JL Audio: a ported or vented enclosure is not recommended for the 13 TW5s. So those specs look great, but what really sets the TW5 apart is its unique engineering design. So first off, JL Audio uses a proprietary concentric tube suspension design on these, where the magnet actually sits inside of the voice coil rather than mainly on the outside like a conventional subwoofer. Along with the elimination of the typical top plate found in conventional subwoofers, this allows the design of the subwoofer to be much more compressed to achieve that amazing mounting depth while not sacrificing excursion capabilities. Another quick side note here: as you can imagine, this unique design requires a lot of custom tooling and manufacturing, some of which I was able to witness firsthand when I toured the Miramar, Florida JL Audio location. Definitely be sure to check out my full tour video that I made after you watch this video in order to see some of these being built firsthand. Now, another very important design detail for this to qualify as an excellent shallow mount subwoofer is the fact that it doesn't have a pole vent in the center here. Instead, these have an annular, which stands for ring-shaped vent design, to properly cool the voice coil. The lack of a pole vent here for a shallow mount subwoofer is important because it allows you to have the back of the enclosure virtually right up against the subwoofer without worrying about hurting any of the cooling functionality. The 13TW5 also features a cast alloy chassis for greater strength compared to a traditional stamped frame. Now, much like all of JL Audio's other subwoofers, this also features a DMA optimized motor design. This is an analysis that JL Audio performs when designing all of their subwoofers that allows them to achieve extremely linear and dynamic motor systems. Ultimately, this results in reduced distortion, improved transient performance, and stellar sound quality. Finally, JL Audio also uses their floating cone attachment method during the manufacturing process for these, which ensures perfect concentricity of the surround, spider, and voice coil assembly. Now, we mentioned it earlier in the video, but the design of this subwoofer ring outside here also allows us to easily add this sold separately subwoofer grill. With this installed on the subwoofer, we can ensure years of reliable and durable performance. With all the unique design features, the massive cone area, and impressive excursion for such a limited mounting depth, this subwoofer is sure to perform incredibly in a compact space application. Now, coming up on the channel, I am so excited, guys. We are going to be installing three of these in an underseat truck subwoofer application. So if you want to see the full detailed step-by-step video on how I make the subwoofer enclosure for these, and if you want to see how they perform, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. If you'd like to learn more about the JL Audio 13TW5, definitely check out the links down in the video description. A special thanks to JL Audio for sponsoring this video, and thank you for tuning in and watching.